Welcome to curaJOY's Launch and Pivot Your Career in This New World workshop. curaJOY is a nonprofit that improves the accessibility and effectiveness of resources supporting families' emotional wellness. Our organization takes a kid-centric and proactive approach, bring together experts from the fields of AI, machine learning, game design, behavior analysis, and somatic psychology to do what makes you better. Because we believe that when people are doing better, families, companies, and society will do better. I'm honored to introduce Anthony Pujol, the Senior Director of Sanofi's Global Vaccine Project and a curaJOY board member, to talk to you about his own success stories and lessons from the prestigious IMD MBA program and how he has pivoted himself. Looking at his career with one career after another, we're fortunate to have him share his success tips with us. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you very much for this introduction, Caitlin. And hi, everyone. Very happy to be here with you today. So we'll talk about career development, career launch, career pivot, and I will share with you my experience on that. And we will discuss how to prepare to ace for an interview. So you will see also practical tips and lessons learned on this process. And to finish, we will talk about the value of developing your network. And also, because as I say, it happens sometimes, how to deal with rejection. Because it's totally fine sometimes not to pass the interview because there's someone that is better than you, and that's just life. So just to tell you a bit about me, so I'm Anthony. I'm half French, half Thai. I'm 47 actually. And in terms of passion, I love karate. So I'm black belt in karate. So it really teaches you about discipline, about respect of others, etc. I'm really also passionate about diving with sharks. So here you have a picture of a whale shark that was taken in Philippines, and I really like food. So as a French cuisine and Thai cuisine, this is something that I really appreciate. In terms of the roots and education, culture that really forged me as a leader, so I have learned about a mix of science and business. So that's quite what characterized me. So this was very important, and I spent all my youth in France and most of my studies, most of my first job there. And 2.5 years ago, I was living in Colombia as an expat, and I recently moved to US, where I am in my actual role as global project head for vaccine. And in terms of personality, I would say if I had to share one superpower, I really like strategy and connecting the dots between different team and subjects. So for sure, I'm very interested in science, but I like strategy. I mean, very, very different domain. And I really believe that we can learn and apply, things from different industry that are relevant for us, right? So this is a bit about the three leaders that I really admire. So are those ones. The first one on the left, it's Louis Pasteur. So was a famous French scientific that was recognized for having, for example, discovered the vaccine against rabies, and had the chance to work in the Pasteur Institute a few years ago when I did my PhD in virology. So that's one. The second one is Steve Jobs. What I really like in him is that he's quite simple, and this think out of the box, think different way of thinking. It's very interesting, I think, in terms of marketing and business. And the last one, it's Elon Musk, because of his entrepreneurial mindset. So let's talk about career. I'm a strong believer of the advantage of the value of doing plans, of planning. It has value, but you need to be also open to revisit your plan, because you need to be agile. In the actual environment, what you plan has a lot of chance to happen slightly differently, or you will see completely differently. So this is a plan, like a career plan that I did in like 20 years ago. And when I was a researcher at Pasteur Institute. So on the left of the plan, you see the first part was thesis in 3 years. So PhD in 3 years. And then in the middle, you have postdoc. So postdoc, post PhD, usually you do that in 3 years in another country. And then on the right, you have researcher, and you do your career, in research. That's what I wanted to do, at the beginning. But this is what happened, a bit different. So the beginning of the plan is similar. So I was researcher at Pasteur Institute, but my career was influenced by 3 pivotal plans. When I was a researcher, I really love science, and I still do, and I'm now also in a scientific job, but I was missing something. I was missing the contact with people, contact with different functions, etc. I was feeling a bit isolated as a researcher, on my lab with my mouse. And so I decided to pivot from research to business. How to do that? I knew nothing about marketing, so I had to call a friend to ask him what is it about, marketing, etc. And by discovering that, I found interesting the topic, and I say, okay, I want to do marketing. So I went back to school. So I joined HEC business school in France. So I did my master of marketing, and this helped me to reprogram myself from research to business. And then I enter Eli Lilly, where I had different roles. So in brand management and also as sales rep. So I was visiting some GPs, so it was a nice experience. And I stayed there for 9 years. And then I was feeling that I was like a little bit stuck in my career because I had only, the country scope. And I wanted to go more global. So I went back to school. So I did an executive MBA at AMD. And this MBA was really oriented, global. So I was in a class of 60%, and we have 30 different nationalities. And so it really helped me to gain credibility in global role. And then I had the opportunity to apply to a position of global marketing director for the first vaccine against dengue. And this MBA really helped me to get it because of this experience that I gained during this class. And then I did different role at Sanofi, and I did a third pivot because I was more leading before cross-functional team, meaning you're not the direct boss of your team, you lead them as a cross-functional leader. And for me, it was important to get a team where you can actually lead them being their boss, their leader, but as direct reports. So I had this opportunity to go in Colombia 2.5 years ago to be head of marketing for a region called COPAC, which is 24 countries. So that was very challenging for me as pivot because, to be honest, my plan was more to go in Asia. But I didn't get this opportunity. I applied several times in Asia, I failed. But I had this opportunity in Colombia, leading the marketing strategy for 24 countries in Central America, in South America, and in Caribbean. And I didn't even know how to speak Spanish. So I had to learn Spanish on the spot. And that was tough, but I learned a lot. I discovered a lot of things regarding, the culture of these people, and I really love it. Really, that was a super, super experience. I will leverage it for my future role. I'm leading the strategy and the development of 2 new vaccines at the worldwide level. So we are starting really from research, and we are trying to build a vaccine that could have an impact, for example, in a case of a new pandemic. So this is what we are doing. And I had the opportunity also since March to join the board of curaJOY, working with Caitlin and with the others that are on the call. So that's a bit the journey. And my takeaway is that don't hesitate to pivot. It's really worth it. And also don't hesitate to go back to school by sometimes. I've highlighted here, for example, MOOC that are less costly than an executive MBA or a master in marketing, or etc., where you can also learn a lot. For example, storytelling. Storytelling, it's a very important skill. Here, storytelling, this course costs like maybe $500, but this is something that you use every day in your life. This is really regarding how do you do when you go and apply for a job, or if you want to apply for a school, for a business school, or etc. But this example, it's from my experience when I applied to the job of global marketing director for Dengvaxia. So this is how it works. You see, for example, an ad on LinkedIn, and you will have 150 candidates that are applying to this position. So you are one among the 150. 20 candidates are reached via HR, via email, just to test, okay, are you apply, but okay, are you really interested, etc. Can you explain me more about your motivation? And then you have 5 candidates that will go to phone screening, and then 3 candidates that will go to interview. And again, 1 candidate gets the job. So what do you do? How do you do that? So this is one technique. So these are 5 key things that I have experienced that will help you to maximize the chance to land on it. Again, it doesn't work 100% of time because one of the factors is the competition, and you can always have someone that is better than you. But what is important is to sell yourself and to show that you are capable to do this job. So 5 important things. The first one is the impactful CV. So in your CV, important to, for sure, describe your education, your experience, and if you have some experience, to show what are the key achievements that you did in this experience that you get. The second point, when you have to do a cover letter, it's good to have a hook. Just don't do the basic cover letter, but when I'm speaking about a hook, so for example, let's say you are applying to be a volunteer. Well, you could use a hook that is linked to curaJOY mission. And then the third one is one of the most important things. When you manage to reach an interview, you have usually 30 minutes or 45 minutes to ace it. And again, there's a lot of candidates. So what I do when I go in on interview, instead, when the recruiter tells you, okay, for example, tell me about yourself. Okay, I will tell you about yourself, but I will tell you the minimum as quick as possible. And I will try to put this question, but first, okay, can you please tell me about the 3 main challenges of this job? Like in the 2 first minutes of the interview, I will try to place this question. Some interviewer will be a bit surprised, but they will tell you these 3 challenges. And the idea is to do the description of yourself, of what are your achievements, based on these 3 challenges that you will say, I can solve these 3 challenges, and this is why. They don't need to hear so much about other things. Again, 10 minutes, you need to be super focused. So show how you can answer these three challenges. So that is linked. Once you have identified the 3 challenges as part 3, you sell yourself as part 4 to best answer these 3 challenges. And then you close. It's really like when you sell, for example, if I sell you this pen, okay, I will ask you, I will say, okay, what do you need in a pen? What do you want the pen jobs do for you, right? And at the end, I will close. I will say, okay, but do you want to buy it, or is there anything missing? So this closing part is very important because you can identify also if the recruiter has still a barrier to recruit you or not. And if he has still a barrier, you have an opportunity to answer and to show that you can, this barrier is not a barrier. And then the 5th thing is something that we didn't think, but that is very important. Think when you are applying to a job that it's not only you that apply, but that it's like you are like a team of 10. So you will have like maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 interviews to get the job. But here, it's very important that in between this interview, you activate your network. I give you an example for the job of global marketing director for Dengvaxia. This is what I did. Once I had identified the three challenges and I've passed the first, I reached 2 or 3 of my friends. One was an expert on dengue. So I really download the much information I could get on dengue and on this vaccine by another source. That was one of my informal interviews. The second one is that prior to have this global role, I told you that with this MBA, but I had only marketing at country level. So that's a big barrier when you're a recruiter, when you see a country guy that go for global, you better have a good reason to show that you're capable to do it. So for sure, I spoke about the MBA, but I call one friend that has done this type of global role. And I asked him, okay, what are the challenges of the job? What do you do to perform in the job? What are the challenges I may face, etc. So it helps me to frame, really to frame. And even if I had not done the global marketing role before, I would act like I have, because I had these super precious insights from my friend. And you may, for example, in another informal interview, call a person that is already working in this company to learn about the culture. So that's also very important. If you don't fit with the culture, you won't be taken. One of the key points also, it's about the role of your network. So for example, to get this informal interview or to be able to reach what I call the dark market of the job, you have all the jobs that are posted on LinkedIn. That's one source of the job. But I would say 60% of the jobs that are interesting are not posted yet. So how do you do to access this dark market? You need, again, to be able to contact people that are in companies that interest you informally. And so you don't, here I've put 2 examples. On the left, what I don't like in terms of approach, and on the right, what I like in terms of approach. The difference between the two is that the one on the left, it's not personalized. The one on the right, it's super personalized. The golden rule is that you need to be polite, for sure. Ask for advice. You can reach anyone asking for advice. You may have like a rate of answer of 30%. If you reach anyone asking for a job, you will have a rate of answer of 0, right? And once you have the chance to get this connection with this person, it's good also to give them some news, right? For example, the job that you have applied, and also to show reciprocity, right? In the future, you may be in a position to help them, right? So it's good to keep this connection. So this is really about the importance of growing your network. So for example, on LinkedIn, I have 4,500 people in my network. So some of them I've worked directly with them, some of them like are headhunters, some of them have nothing to do with what I'm doing, right? So we are all connected for sure. I don't have relationship with all of them. Some of them I am less close than others. But if I have a question that I cannot solve myself, I will reach out to them. And if they have a question that they cannot solve, they will reach out to me. It's very important when you're searching a job to activate your network informally. And it's like a plant, you need to cultivate it, not only reach out to them when you need them. It's like a life, life commitment. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you is that these processes are tough. I have applied to hundreds of jobs. So it means that you will only get maybe in 10% of the case what you want. And that's part of the game, and that's totally fair. So for sure, when you get rejected, we feel miserable, especially when it's your dream job and when you are told, well, no, we find better, or that can be possible this time, try next time. You really feel bad. And that's normal, so let it go, right? But try to learn from it. Sometimes you can reach out to the HR and ask, okay, why I was rejected. So they will tell you. Maybe you were too expensive. Maybe you didn't have this skill. Maybe, but it's important to try to understand. And then last but not least, embrace grit. Again, it's patience and perseverance that will lead you to success. And even if you fail sometime, that's fine. You will learn from it. And at the end of the day, you will grow. And I'm sure that you will have what you want. So I will pause here and take some question. I had already 2 questions. So Caitlin, I don't know if you want me to answer them now.
Yeah, I think for the sake of the recording and all those people who can't attend in person, we're not set up so that we can mobile camera on everyone. So I'm reading out the first question.
Yep.
From a college graduate. How can fresh graduates with no professional experience compete with those who have been in the industry longer but recently laid off? And I think this question relates to all the tech layoffs that's been happening recently.
Yeah. So this is not an easy path, right? If you're really in this situation, I would say it's tough. It's tough, but it's possible. Again, if you look at the different principles that I have explained you, the fact of identifying these 3 challenges and be able to sell yourself versus these 3 challenges will maximize your value, right? I don't say that at the end of the day, maybe it won't work, but maybe it will work, right? It maximizes your value. So the recruiter will say, okay, this guy or this girl, really, they want the job. They really want to answer my need. So this will help, right? Then again, if you have no experience, if you are competing with someone that has 10 years of experience, for a specific job, it would be a lie to say that it would be easy to beat this guy. Because again, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter and of the hiring manager also, because sometimes they just don't want to take risk, right? For example, they want a product manager that has already 5 years of experience of product management. Okay, so that's why it's important to identify this challenge, because sometimes to identify one challenge that is quite tricky and where you have a unique competence that you can put on the table. So for example, I give you when I apply for the position of head of marketing in Colombia, even if I was not speaking Spanish, I had one skill that really interested them. And I figure out this skill by asking about, okay, what are the 3 challenges? And the skill that they really like on me was what we call the global skills. So it's the fact that in my previous role, I was exposed with like the 16,000 people of the company, and I could reach out very easily to anyone. And they were wanting that skill. So that's why it's really a matter of framing. And so that's the first point. And the second point, remember what I told you, it's not just you that apply, you should have a team. In order to compete with this person that have a lot of experience, reach out to one person that has also a lot of experience that you can learn from during the process. And this will help you to maximize your chance. That's my answer.
So last time you said the best way to get somebody's attention is to ask for advice. How can you do that without sounding creepy?
It's a good question. Again, you won't have answer all the time. The way not to sound creepy is just to be yourself. Be authentic. And really, you can pick up anyone, I don't know, let's say you're interested to work in Google or someone in product management, okay? So go on LinkedIn, look at the product manager and say, okay, let's try to have advice from him and ask him just for like maybe 20 minutes of his time, because time also is key. And you know what, in the field, I mean, one of the general rules is that people love to speak about themselves, So if you ask advice because you're impressed by their experience, you would be interested to follow the same path, there's a good chance that they will say yes to you. And you can plan like a quick call with them. And then when you have this call with them, you can ask about their job. For example, question like, okay, what do you really like in your job? What do you really don't like? What is a typical journey of a product manager in Google? And at the end, what you can do is to say, okay, well, I'm interested in product management in Google. Would you be, interested to receive my CV, or do you know someone that could be interested? Because he may not have a need, but he may know someone else in Google that is looking at someone like you, right? So
you must have really inspired our kids. We have a related question from the crowd. How much higher from my current level should I be aiming for with my networking?
I didn't hear it well. Could you please repeat it, Caitlin?
How much higher from my current level, my current career stage, should I be aiming for with my networking? I think they're referring to, should I only aim for people around my level of experience? How high should I go before being rejected and have no chance?
That's a very good question. So let's say you are in an internship level. Okay, so you're doing like a stage of 6 months, etc., and you really want like a marketing role. So I would go and reach out to a product manager, to a brand manager, could be interesting, to like a communication manager. It would be tough to go directly to a CEO, like which is 3, 4, or 5 level direct. It's difficult unless you know someone, you have like a common relation together, like a friend that know a CEO of a company or etc. And there's, so this could be possible. So my tip would be reach out the level that you need, because again, if you are in a trainee and if you want to get like a product manager position, for example, you don't necessarily need to reach out to CEO.
That's correct. The CEO is not going to be the personally hiring for the product manager. We will welcome remote participants to ask questions after we're done with 2 more from the audience. The next question is, I'm exploring working abroad as a way to elevate my career and pay grade. What are the risks of working abroad as an expat? So this person must have done research on the resume before coming.
Yeah, so that's also a super interesting question. So I will share from my experience on that. At the moment in my career, I was obsessed of wanting to be an expat. I was seeing, some of my friends, or I was hearing, that's great to be an expat, etc. So I was really, you need to understand what it means. So actually, I had the opportunity to be an expat when I was in Colombia. And regarding, if I make the link with your question, is that you won't necessarily get an upgrade in your pay if you're an expat. Actually, when I went from France to Colombia, my pay, I get an increase of 0%, right? But I did the move, and I tell you what you need to think, it's not only of your salary, it's also on the benefit that can bring you, the expat status. So for sure, I didn't have a pay increase, but being an expat gives you some advantage. For example, the apartment. You don't have to pay a rent. It's paid by the company. So it's quite a significant cost. You have also some allowance, for example, like a budget that you can use with your wife or with your family to travel, and you are reimbursed by the company. So that's also important. And you have access to classes, to free classes, to stuff like that. So that's quite interesting, So, but you need, I think for me, the most important question is that if you take this expat assignment, what will you learn in terms of skills? Coming back to what I say, my skills, what I was missing was like to lead a team, being the leader of a team of 10 people reporting to me. I needed this box, right? So for me, that was one of the most value. And then you need to pay attention also to the country where you will be expat. For example, when you go from France to Colombia, the cost of living is completely different. It's, I would say, maybe 50% less. In Colombia, it costs you to live 50% less. So if you still have the same salary, if you don't pay the rent, and for example, when you go to a restaurant or when you go out, you pay 50% less, you make a big gain, right? So this is also something to consider. And then in counterpart, I would say, don't be obsessed like me to be an expat. There's sometimes you may have the opportunity, I don't know, let's say you have an opportunity to go in Malaysia with a local contract and you are, for example, from US. It's not necessarily bad to have a local contract. Again, you need to envision what you will learn from this experience. Because if for your next role, having like an experience in Asia is key, what you will gain in Malaysia has no price, whether it's a local contract or an expat contract, because this is something that you can sell after. So, and for example, when I came in US, I didn't get an expat. I get a local contract. But for sure, then they need to align with the cost of living, etc., because you don't have the same salary that when you are in Colombia, for example, because the cost here it's crazy. So, but it's really think about what you will get more about this expat assignment, and if it's in line, for example, with your sentence and what you would like to do.
Our next question comes from a mid-career professional. He's in his late 30s. How much will my career and pay suffer from a complete pivot? What are the true costs? And he would like to add that he's already 8 months into this pivot attempt. And I believe he's considering going back to his old career.
Yeah. So, I mean, you still have for sure the possibility to go back to your previous career. Pivoting has a cost. For sure, it has a cost. For example, when I pivot from research to marketing, so when I finished my PhD, I mean, I was quite like a senior, I mean, in terms of science, etc. I had access a lot of things. And then when I pivot to marketing, I had to start at 30 years as a trainee, right, in marketing. I started like as an internship in brand, in brand management. So you get boom, you get, down in the ladder. But then, for example, when you pick a training, an internship, you need to pick your internship very, very carefully. And for example, in my case, the internship that I picked, my brand manager was pregnant of twins. So when I arrived, 2 weeks after, she was gone. And so I had to take her position. So sometimes you will have crazy opportunity like that. And the fact that she was gone, then they offer me a job to stay after my training. But it's a balance. And again, when you do this pivot, try not to be alone to fight, but to get some ally. People that have already done this pivot or that are already where you want to go can be of tremendous support for that. So if you really have a good reason to pivot because this is really what you want to do at the end of the day, or this is really a key skill that you need to get, just do it.
All right, if you don't mind, I have one question as well. You've spoken several times about having connections with people in different professions and different skill sets that you don't have. Is there a specific way that you can connect with these kind of people or meet up with them?
So I use a lot, but you can also, use friends, family, like friends of your father or your mother. Sometimes, they're on specific domains. So it's a little bit easier to start rather than to reach out to someone that you don't know at all, right? But the technique that I show you for networking, etc., you can do that with someone, I have done it, that you don't know at all. From any company, any position, you can tempt it. Again, not 100% rate of success. I receive, ton of requests like that. Sometimes I don't answer because, again, I think it's not polite, or I think it's just, we say in French, c'est abusé. But most of the time when I can, I answer. And yes, for me, it's important. So I would say try and be aware about, opportunity that sometimes you have in your family also that can help.
And one more question. How do you suggest one spice up their resume to make it more appealing to people looking to hire you?
Okay, if you want, I can share one example, of my resume. I need just 3 minutes to retrieve it. Again,
Wonderful.
the resume you just, sorry, I need 1 more minute.
Take your time, take your time.
It's good also to design your resume, to adapt your resume on the position that you apply. Because again, it may, depending on the position, of the challenge that you already anticipate by seeing the job description, you can tweak your resume. So I'll show you mine. Again, it's an example, but this is how I do my resume. So you put a photo, and then you put a summary of what you've done. So I put this: passionately and high results-oriented leader. The fact that I'm French Thai. It's good to put also something that, maybe is different. So, for example, speaking about karate for myself, about diving, I put that also in my resume. This is something, okay, that make you.
And I have to jump in here too. I recently also use Anthony's resume as an example to someone I'm mentoring. Hiring managers, recruiters, they get thousands. It's really at the top of the food chain where Anthony is at. There may be 150 people applying for the job, but for the more entry level or mid-career, it's oftentimes thousands of people competing for the same job. And it is easy to meet the minimum requirement. So on paper, you have the minimum skill set, degree that's necessary, but hiring managers and recruiters are busy. They go through reading through a few hundreds. They don't want to go through the details of your resume anymore. When I saw this resume, it was among many other CEO resumes, but I remember the diving. I remember the black belt, in addition to all the other accolades. And it's really the top portion of the resume, and something that makes you remember that person to go a bit further and continue reading the rest of the resume and exploring.
So you have that, and then again, for the professional experience, so for example, on the actual one, you will put like 3 or 4 bullet points of what you are doing. So for example, here I've put entrepreneurial leader accountable for strategy and execution of new vaccine project with potential value of $1.5 billion per year. And then you put achievement. So for each of the job that you got, it's good to put, okay, but what was the outcome? So for example, for this one, we have already entered 1 new vaccine target in the pipeline of Sanofi. So that was 1. And that was my previous one. So regarding head of marketing of Copac. So for example, one achievement that I like to say is that on my team of 10, 6 members of my team were promoted. So it means that for me, development of people, it's important. So stuff like that. So, and then after you have other experience, and then you finish by the education. It's good when you have some experience to start by your experience and then after by education. But I understand that sometimes when it's early in the career, it may be a bit the reverse. But to add on what Caitlin was just saying, think of that. The recruiter will read your resume in 10 seconds. 10. So either you are in, either you're out, but you have 10 seconds. So that's very quick.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I can fit this question in the last 2 minutes we have here, but how would you have you ever dealt with someone who is having trouble dealing with rejection? Like, how would you help them with that as well?
I would say I had trouble myself to deal with rejection. I did one of this technique one time. So it was with one of my MBA classmates, and he gave me access to a company that I really like, right? And thanks to him, I got like 5 interviews in a company, including the CEO, And the interview went super well. The CEO was saying, "Oh yeah, it would be great to have you, etc." But at the end of the day, I didn't get the job. Why? Because they didn't take risk, and they took someone that had already 10 years of experience in this job to do it. So okay, fine. But I was really, because I really wanted, and so I even wrote about it, like an essay, etc. But at the end, I say, okay, well, I didn't get it. It's not only my fault. Okay, maybe I made a few mistakes in an interview that can happen. But guy, they wanted someone that had 10 years of experience. There's nothing, you need to think what you have in your control and what is not. If they want someone that has 10 years of experience, or if you are in competition of this guy and this is really the type of profile that they are looking, you're cooked. So how to deal with it? Well, you need to accept that, okay, it's a failure for this, but what did I learn from that, right? What was my take? And then try again, and the next time you will go for it's like, you need to see it like a tennis match, tennis tournament. Sometimes you pass the first tour, sometimes the second, and sometimes you will go to the final, sometimes you will fail in final, but sometimes you will win. So this is like, just take it as practice. You need to practice, and then it becomes as natural as you breathe.
Thank you. That answered my question.
It is 4 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for attending, coming here to our Escondido office. Thank you to Dr. Anthony for taking time from his busy schedule to mentor the younger generation.
Thank you to you. Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.